So today we're talking about one of my favorite things. I love books, that's what my channel's about, but I also love movies and TV shows. I love doing any kind of content that involves both of them. And I've already done one video talking about books that were being adapted into either a TV show or a movie. And I have some more to talk about. So this will be, I guess, part 2 or edition number 2 of that little series. I'm gonna walk you through some book to movie or TV adaptation news. So we have a lot of more recent books in here, a lot of classic books that are getting adapted. So let's get into it. I can't wait to share with you. If you haven't seen my last video, I used to work in the film industry, like the entertainment, film, television, streaming industry from about 2011 through to 2020, so 8-9 years. So I have a little bit of a different insight to some of these, and if I talk about something getting made or being in development, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen for sure. It's just what's going on right now. Film development, television development, and production is a very random thing. Some things go through, some things don't, without any rhyme or reason. So some of these might fall off, but some of these might actually see the light of day. I'm mostly going to talk about the main points. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of all the different little producers, executive producers, co-producers, supporting cast. I'm mostly going to talk about the major studio that's doing it, where it's going to be released, whether it's like a Netflix or a traditional theatrical release. And then I'll talk about if there's any big talent associated with it, whether that is talent you're going to see on screen, like the actors, or if it's talent that you're going to not necessarily see, but is going to be a big part of the adaptation, whether that be directors, producers. And I'm mostly going to talk about big names. I'm not going to talk about every single producer because most people will have no idea who those people are anyways. But this is more like just for funsies. This isn't serious. So this is just giving you an idea of some things that may someday be on your screen. So the first one I wanted to talk about is All the Colors of the Dark. All the Colors of the Dark. I actually read this in the month of October, so I will definitely be talking about my thoughts in my October wrap-up. And this has definitely been the it book lately. That property is going to be produced by Universal Content Productions, which is like a subsidiary of Universal Pictures. And that studio does television series, so they're actually going to be creating a television series surrounding that book. And since it's a new book and it's just been optioned, that's basically all the details we have as of now. But that's really exciting because that book is quite a long saga. It goes across generations and there's a lot of different characters to follow. And I think that's the kind of book that being done as a television series, it'll definitely help show and flesh out the story more so than if it was just made into a movie that's 2 or 3 hours. So the next book we have is actually a memoir, and Universal Pictures has also picked this one up, and that is The Woman in Me, and that is the Britney Spears memoir. I'm really curious to see who they pick to be Britney because I feel like that is going to be so tricky. But I can think of a couple, like Sydney Sweeney maybe, or I don't know, I can think of like a couple young, really popular actresses right now that would probably do a really good job. And this movie is going to be directed by John Chu, and you've definitely heard of John Chu. You've definitely seen his work. He did Crazy Rich Asians, and he is the director behind the new Wicked movie. So I feel like he's a really good choice for this property, and it'll be really exciting to see what they do. Next, we have The God of the Woods. Similar to All the Colors of the Dark, I feel like that has been a very popular thriller book club book lately that everybody has been reading, everybody has been talking about. And when I say option, that is basically the fancy entertainment term for when a book or life rights or any sort of story that has already been created is being bought to be solely produced by a certain company and be turned into some sort of movie and television. So it's basically they have the rights and they are the only ones that have the rights to that. And it is going to be produced by Sony Pictures, which makes sense because Liz Moore, who is the author of that book, has also optioned her other book, Long Bright River, and Sony Pictures is also producing that, and it is going to be a television series. So she's kind of, in with Sony Pictures right now, and both of her books are being produced by them. I think Long Bright River comes out fairly soon. I'll kind of put the date somewhere on the screen once I kind of do a little research about it. But it is good to know that the same studio will be doing God of the Woods, and there will be some kind of consistency there. At least we hope. I think it's the same producing team as well. Long Bright River will be starring Amanda Seyfried, so that'll be interesting. I love seeing her on the screen. I feel like we don't see enough of her now that she has gotten a little bit older. She used to be everywhere when she was younger, so I love to see her be in more movies and television shows. Okay, and this next book is a book that we don't really have a lot of details on, but I really love who's connected to it, so I thought I would just share, and that is Trust by Hernan Diaz. This is a book I've been really curious about reading and picking up, and I think I'll probably pick it up next year when I have like a fresh new TBR. And this news is kind of older. It was announced in 2022, but the thing that kind of brought it back up and kind of resurfaced the excitement about it is Kate Winslet, who will be starring and adapting this property, was seen having lunch with Hernan Diaz, the author, and I think that the author is going to be heavily involved. And so it seems like since they're having lunch and they're discussing the book, that hopefully they will be going into production very soon. I just really loved that Kate Winslet is involved, and I just love her as an actress, and I think if she's involved behind the scenes as well, I think that could only be a good sign. And another just little detail, this is going to be produced to be an HBO limited series, and I feel like when something is produced to be on HBO or Apple TV, I feel like there's more development put into it, more money to really make it quality and make a quality series versus just kind of being produced with a million other shows. A little bit more time and money and eyes on those types of projects. Next up, we have a book that I read recently that kind of flopped for me, but it is a very popular book, and that is Coco Malore's Cleopatra and Frankenstein. This book has been picked up by Warner Brothers, and it was acquired in 2022 when it came out. So I'm assuming Blue Sisters, her new release, is going to be picked up. Coco Malores herself is heavily involved in adapting the screenplay, which I always think is a good sign because that means they're trying to really stick to their book and keep it as true as possible. Sometimes there can be some issues with authors not understanding the creative process for creating a book or TV show and budget constrictions, but in general, I think it's always a good sign if they are involved. I think there's a lot of really interesting, greedy characters in Cleopatra and Frankenstein, which I did like about the book. I think it definitely will be well served as a series versus a movie so that you can really watch these characters' development, because I feel like that was really the root of that story. And then we have some fun news, a book that has been adapted and done a million times, but we have some fresh faces to it, is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So obviously we've all seen some sort of Frankenstein movie or TV show or something. But the fun thing about this one is it is being directed by Guillermo del Toro, and he is really known for doing quirky, weird takes on different films. He has a very unique style that I think will do really well with this type of story, and it is being done for Netflix as a movie. And there are some really cool stars attached. Originally, Andrew Garfield was tapped to play the monster, but now, because of, I think, scheduling and different things, he's been replaced by Jacob Elordi, who I feel like he's the it boy right now. Him and Timothée Chalamet are kind of getting offered everything, and they kind of get to pick the pick of the litter of what movies they want to do. So it'll be starring Jacob Elordi, and there's some really cool supporting cast. We'll have Oscar Isaac as the Dr. Frankenstein, and then we have Christoph Waltz, Mia Goth, and Felix Kammerer. I believe that's how you say his last name, Felix Kammerer. And something that's really interesting that I think will be kind of a fun take, since this property has been done over and over again, Del Toro has said that this isn't going to be a traditional adaptation, and it'll be an adventure story and not the central creation story. So I'm really interested to see where he takes that, and we're likely going to see this in 2025. And it seems like it has been a lifelong passion project for Del Toro. So I think it'll be really fun. If it isn't totally true to the book, I think it'll just be fun to see a new take on it, since we have seen it many, many times. And then the next book we have that is being adapted is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This, just like Frankenstein, is a classic. Many, many people have read it. It is a really beloved story. It's very interesting from what I have gathered. It sounds like they're going to be doing a modern TV adaptation, and it's going to be called The Greys. From what I can tell, it's going to be really heavy on the reimagining. I don't think it's going to be a very true to book adaptation. I think that they're taking some of the characters and some light story and kind of evolving to create something different. And I believe they're calling it The Greys because I think they're going to make the two main characters siblings. I don't think in the book they are siblings. Please comment down below if you've read that book. I'm planning on reading that book very soon, but from what I gathered, I don't think the book involves siblings. I think it's two main characters, but I think they're going to make them siblings in this reimagining. So that'll be interesting. And that is going to be on Netflix, and I believe Warner Brothers TV is producing it to be on Netflix. So no other details. I don't know who they're casting. Then we have an Alice Feeney book, His and Hers. This book I think came out in, I want to say like 2023 or 2022. I think it's a fairly newer Alice Feeney book. I haven't read any Alice Feeney, but she's definitely on my list to check out. I feel like she kind of falls in the Leanne Moriarty like bucket for me. Her book is going to be adapted to be on Netflix, and it's going to be a 6-episode miniseries. And since they've already gone in production, we definitely have casting details, and it is going to star Tessa Thompson, John Bernthal, and Pablo Schreiber. I think they are going to change the setting. I believe the book takes place in England. It's like a British setting, but they're going to move it to Atlanta to make it more Americanized for American TV, and it'll be very interesting to watch what happens with that one. Now, we have basically book 2, book talk, book everything's darling. I feel like this book is loved by so many people, and it is constantly recommended. And if you read books and you haven't come across it, then I don't know what to say. And this is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Obviously, Taylor Jenkins Reid's, that's really hard to say. Taylor Jenkins Reid's other novel, Daisy Jones and the Six, was created into an Amazon Prime miniseries. So no surprise, she has a lot of really popular books. The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo has been super sought out, and it is going to be a Netflix adaptation, and it is going to be made into a film. And so it looks like the main person leading behind the scenes is Liz Tegelar. She also did Little Fires Everywhere and is also doing the Malibu Rising adaptation, which is another one of Reid's novels. We don't really have any details on casting, which I would love to share because I think that is going to be so fun to find out who they cast as Evelyn Hugo. For a long time, people were thinking it was going to be Jessica Chastain, but she's kind of denied those rumors and said that she is not going to be part of it. So I'm really interested to see. I think I saw some other people talking about Selena Gomez. Once we figure out who is starring, I feel like that's going to really ramp up, and we're going to go into development and production really fast. Next up, we have another literary classic, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Now, this one has been definitely controversial as of late, since they have told us who they have cast as the 2 leads, and it is going to be Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. I have not read Wuthering Heights, so I cannot speak from, someone who has read the novel. I just know kind of basically the controversy behind it. And I think the main male lead throughout the book is kind of insinuated that he is not white Caucasian and that he has darker skin. And so for them to cast obviously a white Caucasian male lead in Jacob Elordi, there's definitely been some controversy about that. I mean, that has always been something that Hollywood just seems to keep getting wrong and keep doing that mistake over and over again. I think that they're maybe just hoping that since Elordi is so popular, and I don't know, he may have some ethnicity that I'm not aware of that makes him right for this role, but I definitely know Hollywood chooses star names over authenticity. So we shall see what happens there. I think that this will definitely be one to look out for. It is going to be a big adaptation with those 2 star leads, And since we have casting, I think that they're probably going to be shooting very soon. Next one we have is a nonfiction, and I thought this one was really fun because of who is involved. So this one is called Blood Runs Cold: The Yablonsky Murders and the Battle for the United Mine Workers of America. So that's a mouthful. It is a book, I believe, 1960s Pennsylvania coal mines chronicling shocking assassination that altered the history of American labor unions. So what really kind of grabbed me about this one is, one, I like nonfiction, and the person that is attached to it is Cillian Murphy. And as we know and we've seen, he does very serious dramatic roles and really brings this life into them and makes them so magnetic to watch. He is going to be starring and producing in this, and it is going to be at Universal Pictures. So I believe it's going to be like a full-fledged movie that we will probably see in theaters. So that's really exciting. And Blood Runs Cold is written by Mark A. Bradley. Okay, we're back. Sorry, my camera decided to take a nap, so we are back. So I think I left off with Remarkably Bright Creatures as my next one I was going to talk about. And this is by Shelby Van Pelt. I have yet to read this one, but I have seen everybody reading it and really loving it. I believe it's about an octopus in an aquarium or a zoo, and then like a woman starts to talk to it or like fall in love with it, or somehow it changes her life. And we already have details about who is going to star, and it is going to be Sally Fields as the lead. So that seems very fitting from what I've read about the book. Let me know if you've read the book and you agree with that. And it is going to be adapted as a Netflix film. And we have Olivia Newman directing, and she did Where the Crawdads Sing. So she is very familiar with book adaptations and very big book adaptations of that. So it'll be very interesting to see what she does with this one. Next, we have a newer kind of romance. I think it's kind of like a rom-com book, and that is The Love of My Afterlife by Christy Greenwood. So the interesting thing about this is there is a lot of producers, but one of them includes Justin Baldoni. And as we know from the It Ends With Us PR nightmare drama, he starred and directed in It Ends With Us. And so his production company is also going to do this film. And I believe he's going to be starring, but I'm not sure. I definitely know he is directing or behind the scenes in some form. Next is a behemoth of a novel, which I feel like has been having a big resurgence lately, and a lot of people have been reading it and loving it, and it's making me want to pick up and read it very soon, and that is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And this is obviously one of Steinbeck's most popular works, along with Grapes of Wrath, and I believe this is his longest, and there is a lot of story in this, a lot of characters, so seems like it's going to be very epic. And so Netflix has gotten the rights to adapt it, and it is going to be a limited series, and I believe it'll be 7 episodes. And we have casting, and it is going to star Florence Pugh, Christopher Abbott, Mike Feist, and Hoon Lee. I think I want to read the book before I see this, so I think I need to add East of Eden to my TBR pronto. And it looks like we have Zoe Kazan, who is going to adapt it. The only reason I bring her up is because her grandfather, Elia Kazan, I believe directed the East of Eden James Dean adaptation that is also, as you have probably heard or seen, it's very legendary. And so we definitely have some nepotism going on here. I still think that she probably has something to bring to this film that is very unique, and it is not a bad thing necessarily. And it is projected that they're going to finish filming sometime in Q2 of 2025, and hopefully we will see a release in early 2026. And then the next one we have is We Used to Live Here. I actually listened to this on audiobook this month, and it has been kind of like the horror novel of this season. I feel like it's kind of caught on fire. And what's really interesting about this one is it was actually bought and optioned before the book was written. So Netflix secured the rights to this back in 2021, and they secured the rights with the author. The author obviously hadn't finished writing the book, so they just optioned the rights to the idea of this book, and when the book would come out, they would already have the rights to it. So I find that very interesting. I feel like a lot of studios are doing that more and more because they are using a lot of their source material as books nowadays, and they're trying to kind of get a jump on it so that there's not a bidding war. Blake Lively is co-producing and starring, so It's definitely involves a queer couple at the center of it and kind of all of the weird things happening with the home that they just bought. So not sure which person she's going to star as. I'm assuming it's going to be the main narrator lead. I think it's going to be a movie though. I think it's going to be like a horror movie. And when I listened to the book, I definitely could imagine it being a horror movie. There was quite a few plot holes though that was kind of I didn't love, but I think that they could kind of simplify it and make it more cohesive as a film. Next, we have two big ones and kind of revolving around one of my favorite books, and that is Pride and Prejudice. First, we have news that just released, I feel like in the last week or so, and they are going to be making a Pride and Prejudice series on Netflix. That's big news. Very exciting. And they have announced that Daisy Edgar Jones is going to be playing the main lead. So I really actually love that. I first saw her in Normal People, like I feel like a lot of people did, and I feel like she just has that charisma and that demeanor that's going to fit Elizabeth Bennet very well. And only other details we have about this is Dolly Alderton is writing. Obviously, maybe not obvious, but Dolly Alderton is a writer. She has written a lot of popular books surrounding love, relationships. So I kind of like that. I think it's kind of going to be an interesting take, but I'm always scared when Netflix takes over such a classic. I mean, we saw what happened with Persuasion and I did not love it. So I'm hoping they do this one better justice because I am very invested. Then kind of going similar to that world, there is the book called The Other Bennet Sister, which follows Mary Bennet, which she is not a prominent character in Pride and Prejudice. And this book is by Janice Hadlow. Obviously, in Pride and Prejudice, there are 5 sisters, and Mary Bennet doesn't have a huge storyline. This is kind of like her side of the story and kind of, I think, a reimagining. And this is going to be aired on BBC on the 30th anniversary of their Pride and Prejudice series. And that one starred Colin Firth. It's very, very, very famous, very well loved. So this will premiere on the anniversary of that premiere, and it's going to be a 10-part series. So I kind of love that it's going to be on BBC. It's going to stay kind of in that British world, and I'm really excited to see how this one turns out. And there hasn't been any casting news, so we have no idea who is going to play who, but I think that there isn't as much weight in this one just because we haven't really seen Mary Bennet that much. So don't have as much of a picture in my mind of who I would want to play her. So I think I'll probably be okay with whoever they cast. Keep your eyes out for that one. And I'll have to figure out when that 30th anniversary date is so that I can hopefully put that up on the screen somewhere for you. We have a couple more. I had a lot to share this time around. One of them being Stephen King's Fairy Tale. I'm a Stephen King fan. I don't know if I would say I'm like a fanatic or I want to read everything that he's written, but I definitely have enjoyed the books that I have read from him, and I really like his writing style. I'll push through a mediocre book of his just because I like his writing style. So his book Fairy Tale I have not gotten to yet, but the exciting news about this one, it is being produced by A24. And if you kind of follow films, A24 does really interesting, unique takes on films, and they put a lot of development and thought into what they're doing. They're not just kind of burning and churning movies to get big theatrical releases. They're doing it for quality. Their filmography is amazing. I'm sure you've probably seen one of them before, and it is going to be produced to be a 10-episode series. So, Stephen King, every one of his properties are optioned, have been done, are going to be redone, but I really like the idea that this one was being done by A24. Next up, we have the famous book American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. We've obviously seen this done before with Christian Bale's version, which is very, very popular. It's a cult classic. What's exciting is who is behind it, and it is going to be directed by Luca Guadagnino. Forgive my pronunciation. I believe it's Italian, and I didn't know how to pronounce it. I love this because he is obviously behind some really recent hits. The Challengers, Call Me By Your Name. Him behind the helm of this type of movie, I feel like is going to be great because I feel like his stories are really get into really distinct characters and really unique storylines around these characters. And I think that that's very fitting for this type of archetype, this really famous character in literature and in the movie world. And this is going to be at Lionsgate, which is a little bit worrying since Lionsgate hasn't done the best decision making in the last year or two, but we'd definitely be interested to see it since the director is going to be Luca and he's done some really, really cool things lately. And then we have Hamnet, which is by Maggie O'Farrell. I read this book, I believe, in 2022 and actually really, really loved it. I really liked it. I am really excited about this one because Shakespeare has been cast and it'll be played by Paul Mescal. He is super, super popular, really well loved. He is going to be in the new Gladiators movie that is coming out. And obviously he's very popular being in the TV series Normal People. And then the main Shakespeare's wife, who is the main character in Hamnet, is going to be played by Jessie Buckley. She's been in things like, I'm thinking of Ending Things, The Lost Daughter. So she's been in quite a few book adaptations, and just her disposition and her kind of vibe, I feel like fits this character really well. And the director is going to be Chloe Zhao, and she's done The Eternals, Nomadland. She's kind of like one of the up and coming directors right now in our time, and I'm really excited about that one. I really liked Nomadland. I haven't seen The Eternals, but I am excited that a woman is directing this film. It is a very woman-led story, and I really love that they have decided to let a woman tell this story. This is being adapted by Maggie O'Farrell, who obviously wrote the book, which is always a great sign, along with Zhao. And there is a lot of people involved in executive producing this film. Executive producing is a very broad term given to producers. It could mean that they're really heavily involved in the development and production of this movie. It could also just mean that they have thrown their name on it and thrown their financing behind it. So it's kind of a loose term. You don't really know how involved they are, but we do have Sam Mendes and Steven Spielberg that are going to be executive producing this film. So either way, whether they're heavily involved or not, that's always a good sign for a movie. And to end this off, I kind of just wanted to do an update on one of the films I talked about in my other video, and that is Mickey 7. And I believe it is called Mickey 17, and it is being adapted to be called Mickey 7 or vice versa. They changed the number in the adaptation, and it is starring Robert Pattinson. So I just wanted to share a little update. That trailer has dropped. It had dropped a few weeks ago. It looks really, really fun. Robert Pattinson looks like he's bringing out his really quirky side, and I love to see that. So definitely go check out the trailer for that one. And then I just kind of wanted to talk about a book adaptation that I've really been loving lately, and I don't know if I've talked about it on the channel before, but that is Pachinko. Pachinko by Min Jin Lee is a super popular book. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Apple TV has been producing it and has been the studio kind of behind the adaptation. And season 1 came out last year and season 2 came out this year. It just wrapped up the final episode of season 2, and we're kind of left in a big moment in the book. And so if you have not checked that out and you did not know that they had adapted that book, please go check it out. It is so beautifully done. They changed some things in the story, but I think it really works well for the show. The actors are amazing. You feel every moment in that TV show, and I feel like each episode I just want to cry because it's like so dramatic and so well done. And the music's great as well. It's just all around such a great adaptation. So if you haven't checked that out, please give it a try. And I'm hoping that we will get a season 3. It hasn't been announced, but I'm hoping that it will be, since we got a season 2, and Apple TV tends to be a little bit more dedicated to their series. So those are all of my updates. I hope you found something or heard about something that you hadn't heard and kind of got you more excited. I think what's so fun about reading is we imagine something in our head, all of us, that is so unique to our reading of it and our perception, and then to see someone else out in the world that brings that to life and to kind of see it out there visually. I think it's such a fun experience that you just get to experience the book all over again. And I am so excited for so many of these, especially some of these literary classics. And it's really motivating me to want to read them before the movie or the TV show comes out. So let me know which ones you're most excited to see. Let me know if I've missed any, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.